Hi, I'm in the archives of Christ Church here in Philadelphia, and I'd like to introduce to you an old friend, the Reverend Tim Safford, who is the rector of Christ Church. He and I were in the same diocese when I was in Los Angeles. Tim, thank you for letting us be here. You have something to show us.
Christ Church has a famous and well-known history in the history of the Episcopal Church, and very much linked with the days of revolution in the colonial times. And one of the most revolutionary things I think that ever happened in the church is on July 4th, 1776, when news came from just a couple of blocks from here that the Continental Congress, had passed the Declaration of Independence, and that the nation was declaring itself independent. The vestry was called together by the rector at that time, the Reverend Jacob Duché, and they passed a resolution that is difficult for us removed from that time to appreciate how radical and revolutionary it was. They passed on July 4, 1776, the vestry did, whereas the Honorable Continental Congress has resolved the American colonies to be free, in consequence of which it will be proper to admit those petitions in the liturgy wherein the King of Great Britain is prayed for, as inconsistent with said declaration. And so the rector, after receiving that declaration, Jacob Duché, the next time at divine service, worship as we call it, divine service as they called it, he actually crossed the king's name out of the Book of Common Prayer, and we still have that Book of Common Prayer that has King George's name. It's crossed out almost everywhere. It appears in this book that they used at that time. But you'll see before the lines, here's the prayer: to strengthen the true worship of thee, the righteousness and holiness of thy life, of thy servant George, meaning King George, our most gracious king and governor. And it's been crossed out, and written in it is that it may please thee to endue the Congress and others in authority with grace, wisdom, and understanding, to execute justice and maintain truth. Now, it's for a Church of England clergyman, and Duché had been ordained in England, that was an act of high treason. And when the British Army occupied Philadelphia in September of 1777, he was a rather political man, and the army attended church here in Mass. He put the prayers for King George back in, but they arrested him anyway at the end of the service and threw him in jail. And the lieutenant, I think it was, who arrested him, wrote in his journal, he tried to hide his treason, but he could not. One of the things that's interesting to me as a clergy person and to remember is that when the British entered Philadelphia, the first person they arrested was not Benjamin Franklin. It wasn't some signer of the Declaration of Independence. It was the priest at Christ Church who had the audacity to not pray for the King of England, because I think the British understood that in some ways then he was the most dangerous man, because if they lost control of the church, they would truly lose control of the people. And we should never forget that moment in American church history, much less as remembering our American history.